Oh my God, today we have the honor of interviewing the beautiful Rachel Hornbuckle. Oh my God! Hi, Rachel. You're so beautiful.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you
we're
so much for having.
matching.
I know, right? The black and white. Yes. Welcome to the Healing House TV, where we reveal to heal. My name is Tara Robinson, and our subject for today is the real Miss USA. Many of you guys know that I am a school counselor, so I work with many children who face a facet of issues. Just last week, I had a child come in to me and tell me that he's never met his father. Why? Because his father is incarcerated. And the pain and the anguish that he has trying to figure out his journey as a 10-year-old child. So today, what better guest than to have Miss Rachel Hornbuckle, who has experienced these same issues. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. Now, I want to dive right in, Rachel. You recently just ran for Miss Texas.
I did.
And you're currently Miss Arlington. Congratulations
Thank you so
on
much.
those accomplishments. Let's talk about the facade of being a beautiful woman, pageant woman, that whole world, and what people assume you to be.
Oh, absolutely. I think the first misconception is that we're just pretty girls and that there's nothing going on in our heads or in our lives or that we're not real people. But that's the exact opposite. We come from all different walks of life. We have experienced so many things, which I think makes it even more interesting, especially pageant weekend. If you ever come down from Miss Texas USA, you'll get to know all of the girls, and if you sit and talk with us, you'll see that it's much more than just about being a beautiful woman. It's about owning who you are, being confidently beautiful, and truly just walking in your purpose. And that's exactly what I'm doing now.
Walking in your purpose.
Absolutely. Even though I tried to run from it.
What exactly is your purpose?
You know, I think that I'm supposed to be a voice for a generation of people who have experienced adversity. We don't talk about the things that we go through or our mental health or even our physical health in the way that adversity affects us. And I know for me, talking about it actually healed me a lot. And it also made me realize that I'm not alone. And while I used to hate talking about it. I wouldn't even tell people my last name. But through my own journey and my own path and finding what my purpose was, I realized that I was kind of being selfish by not telling other people my truth. And that when I do talk about it, it not only heals me, but I'm also offering healing to others. Or
Exactly.
a doorway to healing.
Exactly. And let's talk about what that it is, because that's how you and I came into communication with each other. Somebody actually tagged me on your post because they know I love connecting with women who are transparent about their journeys.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to when you were 12
Yes.
and what that it is.
So when I was 12 years old, my father, Terry Hornbuckle, was a bishop at Agape Christian Fellowship, and he actually was convicted of rape and sentenced to 15 years in prison. It was very hard, especially being in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He was a rising young pastor with a booming congregation and ministry. And to go from being on top of the world to completely being knocked down, and like my dad's in prison now, and essentially growing up without a father in a single parent household, but on top of that with millions of people watching
Right.
for you to fail, and watching for my brothers and my mom to see what our next move was going to be, was extremely stressful.
Right.
I never wanted to mess up. I never felt like I could breathe or be myself. And in a sense, I didn't even know who I was because everybody always knew me as Bishop Terry Hornbuckle's daughter. And I just wanted to be Rachel.
Right.
Which was so hard. And I think that me going away to school in Arkansas and essentially going off to law school in Alabama gave me an opportunity to get to know who I am and not have that tag of being Bishop Terry Hornbuckle's daughter on me.
I think most people don't consider the children
Oh, no.
when things like this happen, and it's such, in the public eye.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like you wasn't considered, and do you think the public should have some mercy on the children in these situations?
Absolutely. I definitely wasn't considered. My brothers weren't considered. My mother even wasn't considered. A lot of people forget that when someone is incarcerated, they're leaving behind a family. And a lot of the times, like, kids don't have both of their parents. Like, I was blessed to have my mom and my village of people to care for us, but most kids are left with grandparents or enter into the foster care system because of a choice their parents decide to make. And that's really hard. I know for me, just growing up with one parent, even though I went to see my father, it definitely affected the way that I form relationships and the way that I bond with others, the way that I act in public. I used to get very nervous. I am very social, but at the same time, I had social anxiety. So I'm like, oh my goodness, do they know? Are they going to ask me? Or like, what do they know about me? And most people around here did know. But growing up, it was just hard because I grew up without a father. And I think most children grow up with that stigma that, oh my goodness, well, my parent is in prison, so I'm probably going to end up doing something wrong and end up in the same exact place, which is really sad. And most children are 10 times more likely to end up in prison.
Right.
And then the cycle just continues. We were very blessed. We had my mom, we had our church family, we had the community out here in Colleyville who held us up. And that's not the case for the majority of the children who go through that. And I actually did a study in law school about it, just because that was actually kind of where I started talking about it. That 1 in every 10 children have a parent that has been incarcerated at some point in their lives. And I was just like, wow, my brothers and I were that 1 in every 10 children. You don't think about that until you look at the statistic and you realize that you have become one. But at the same time, I was like, I don't want to be a statistic. I'm going to beat that. And the same goes for my brothers as well.
Yeah. So talking about that, you mentioned relationships.
Yes.
And you're a beautiful woman, so I'm sure.
It's a struggle.
Yes. So how has that affected you in your relationships with men as far as trust and betrayal? And how has what your father did affected you?
Absolutely. I think I enter each relationship with a certain amount of caution, just because I'm like, okay, I need someone who is going to act right, who's not going to put me in a position where they could go to prison, or like I can go to prison as guilty by association. And it's been really hard dating. Yeah. And I think people think, like you said, they look at me, they see a beautiful woman, they see someone who is accomplished.
Right.
But I think that a lot of people miss the fact, like I go to counseling every single week, and I check in monthly just because I needed to work on me and the way that I form relationships. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, everybody tells me I'm pretty, but I don't feel pretty, and everyone's doing, like, the guys I dated have done wrong. And my dad did wrong, and so I was like, oh, I'm ending up dating someone like my dad, but my dad was a good man, but he made bad decisions. Right. And it starts to spiral for me personally. And I mean, I'm very comfortable with saying it now. Like, I needed help with how I form relationships with people outside of my family. Friendships, for me at least, I hold on way too tight, because I feel as though, oh my goodness, don't do anything wrong, or like, don't go anywhere because I don't want to lose you, because I've already lost someone who was so important to me. And I think that I've done the same thing in romantic relationships as well. When I really should, like, let go and release and sometimes back off. Right. Because not every relationship is for me. Not every relationship is for you. Exactly. Sometimes people come into your life for, like, a season, and I've held on to people longer than the season. You need to let them go. Right. I think we're all guilty of that, especially women who have dealt with a level of trauma. Yes. And when it comes, like, I didn't have my father, so, he passed away when I was 2. So I can relate in a sense to not having a man around. Absolutely. But you had him until you were 12. Yes. And so what labels from that did you place on yourself, like words? I think a big one was, like, daddy issues. I also I saw myself as a statistic now. I think, those are probably the two basic words, and maybe, like, fatherless. Even though my father is still with me, he's in prison. I don't get to see him all the time. and my mom would take me down there. My grandmother would take us to visit. But it's like traumatic going down there and seeing someone that you love in a like caged like an animal, and everyone else down there the same way. And I can only reach across the table and touch you. Like I can't come around. I can't really hug you and treat you like I have any other way. And in my head, I was just like, wow, I don't even feel like I have a dad. I feel like I am a statistic along with everybody else who's in this room coming to see their dad or their uncle or their brother. I don't know. I said like daddy issues, but like in the back of my mind, I think I was always like, I don't want to be that person. I never tried to acknowledge it until I got older, and I was like, okay, I got a few issues.
When did you realize that? What made that come out that you realized I have a few issues?
It actually was a relationship in law school. My ex-boyfriend had just like cheated and done a couple things, and I found out, and this was all during finals. And it almost felt like I had just hit rock bottom. I'd taken my finals, like I didn't want to come home for the holidays. And I just sat there, and I think I had prayed for a while. It's like, I don't know what else you want me to do. Like, do you want me to admit I have these issues? Do you want me to go see somebody? And I was blessed. My best friend, Bridget Harris, she came by and checked on me, and she was like, I just think you should go see the school counselor. And he really helped me kind of address some of the issues and realize that I had been through something traumatic. Right. In my life, like in my mind, I was just like, that was life. I was just surviving. I didn't feel like it was anything special compared to what anyone else went through in the world. And when I would talk to people about it, they'd be like, oh my God, you're so strong. I'm like, what did y'all want me to do? I had to live. Like, I wanted to live my life.
So did anybody ever ask you, at 12, how you felt about what was going on, and did you need counseling at that point, or did you have to heal yourself through this journey for the most part?
My mom asked.
He's making his interest. You said he was going to do that.
My mom asked if I needed counseling. I think at that age I was just really angry. Yeah. And I was like, no, don't tell me like I need counseling. Don't tell me something's wrong with me. But besides that, nobody else really asked. I don't think people really stopped to think like, are the kids okay? And maybe they did. But my brothers and I, we kind of held on to each other. And even in that, we really didn't tell each other what we were going through. Like sometimes I would sit upstairs, and I'm the only girl, so I would sit upstairs and I'd cry, and I'd be like, okay, I don't know why I'm crying, but like I'm sad. I don't know why this is going on. But besides that, in my opinion, I think people try to kind of tiptoe around it, try to make me feel as normal as I could. When there are some moments where I just wish like somebody would have asked if I was okay. Right. And even though my mom had asked me, I think that I was in so much denial, I had to hit rock bottom to be like, okay, I need to go get help. I need to go make sure I'm okay. And I was always trying to be perfect and not mess up and be everything that my father couldn't.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really hard, and everything that they wanted me to be, because I felt like almost like a golden child. I'm the only girl. I was like I am my father's pride and joy, and my mother's as well. They loved us all equally, but at the same time, I felt a different amount of pressure on me, because I was like, okay, I'm the only girl. I can't go off to school. I can't get pregnant. I can't. Like, I can't mess up. And I just, at one point, I just felt like I was suffocating. And it's one of those debilitating feelings where you're just like, I don't even know what I can do. Like, I'm usually a very positive person. I'm always smiling at people. Like, they don't really see everything that I go through when I'm thinking on my own. And so, I thank God, and I thank Him for blessing me with friends who, when I got older, checked on me as well.
And I want to bring up that point because a lot of parents send their child off to college. And college sometimes is like ripping the Band-Aid off, and I don't know what happens, but a lot of kids come home, or the mom get the call like your child needs you because she's having a mental issue or a mental health issue. So with that, what would you say to a young lady that's about to go to college that don't realize that they haven't dealt with their issues? What advice would you give to those young ladies?
My situation was a little bit different. I played sports, so I had a positive outlet to always kind of get my anger and my frustration out. But if I hadn't had that, I think I would have at least tried to go to counseling. There were so many times that I thought about it, but I was so scared because I was like, I don't want anything to be wrong with me. But I would tell younger girls and other women that nothing's wrong with you. It's okay to take care of yourself and to make sure that you are mentally healthy.
Right.
Especially going off to college. That's when you're going to be by yourself for the first time. You're going to be with other young ladies and young men.
Right.
And you have freedom. You have like maybe a little bit too much freedom. But you have to know who you are, whose you are, and remember that your family loves you and that you're first of all going there for school. It's good to build relationships while you're there and just to take care of yourself. Like I've seen a lot of people go to school and literally lose their mind or get addicted to drugs or have something else happen to them. And it's really sad because I'm just like, wow, like that could have been me.
Right.
And like I said, luckily I had an outlet and I had my teammates and my coaches as accountability partners. I think when I went off to law school is where I personally kind of started like, oh my goodness, like I think something might be wrong with me or I might need to go get help. But that's because I didn't have my outlet anymore, which is kind of like people going into their first year of college. I felt like I was starting all over again in a new city, in a new state, by myself. And I mean, it's really hard because sometimes you're by yourself, like especially if you go out of state.
And that's kind of hard to deal. A lot of us can't handle the by ourselves stages. As we wrap this up, your dad will eventually have to come home. And what does that look like for you as far as forgiveness? Because a lot of times we say, oh, I forgive, I'm past that. But now he's not behind bars and he's in your face. What does that moment look like for you?
Oh, man.
Have you thought about it?
I actually have. And I want to start off by saying there are levels to forgiveness. It is, it's work. It's not something like, oh my goodness, I forgive you. Love and rainbows. It's an ongoing thing. For me personally, I had to start with forgiving my dad with not telling us the truth and then being in the situation that we're in. And when he gets out, he's not a way to where I can just be like, I don't feel like talking to you right now.
Right.
Because my dad's a very persistent man, so I know that he's going to be active in our lives. So I want to make sure that I can sit down and I talk to him and just voice my opinions and let him know the boundaries for my life. He's still my father. I love him.
Right.
He raised us very well, and I'm very proud of the foundation he gave my brothers and I. But it's going to be a process. I think it's not going to be easy by any means. I think with anyone whose parent is coming out of prison, it's a hard transition because you've lived so long without this person in your life, and now you're adding them back in.
Right. And
you're like, okay, well, let me figure out how this is going to flow. And especially my brothers and I are very defensive of my mother. So I think that's kind of where our sore spot is going to be. We are very protective. We want to make sure that she's okay. We have grown up. We know that he has to be in our lives.
Right.
Like, he's our father. But we want to make sure that like she's okay and that he understands that we have boundaries in our lives and that he's going to have to be forthcoming with some things that we're going to have to discuss.
That's good, and I wish you all the best
Thank you so much.
of luck. Before we leave, if you had to let me go back. If you had to tell your 12-year-old self, give your 12-year-old self some advice, what would that be?
I would tell my 12-year-old self that give yourself a break. It is not your fault. Things happen in life, but they happen for a reason. And no matter what happens, don't ever wish that you could change anything. Don't ever wish that you could have a redo because it's going to make you a stronger woman. Definitely. Definitely.
Give yourself a break. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. We appreciate your time. It's okay to give yourself a break. Reveal to Heal, the Healing House TV. Thank you for joining us.